Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. On behalf of National Bank of Fujairah, I am pleased to welcome you all. I am Ali Abdullah Abdel Nabi, and I will be hosting today's webinar. While businesses are regaining their strength to redirect their growth curve toward progress, there are still many challenges to overcome post-COVID. Cybercrime has witnessed a significant increase during the pandemic as more people turn on online platforms. Both large corporations and SMEs have experienced cyber attack compromising confidential information and sensitive data, including banking and business details. In such a scenario, where your business needs more protection, it is important to have a state-of-the-art cybersecurity system in place. Today, we will discuss the importance of employing cybersecurity and how to take precautions against data breaches. This webinar is part of a knowledge-sharing efforts by National Bank of Fujairah, where our aim is to increase awareness of common trends, challenges, and opportunities to help SMEs with the resources not only to operate, but to grow and develop even further in today's transforming environment. Our efforts and services are continuously recognized by a number of industry accolades, including the recent title of the Best SME Bank and Most Innovating Emerging Technology Implementation by EMEA Finance Awards. I will take advantage of today's session and will remind you not to forget to register to nbfconnect.ae, a platform designed to empower SME where you can connect other like-minded business owners and get updates on the industry trends and market insights. Together with me, I have in the panel Yen, Managing Director in ITSER, Adish Pillai, Practice Leads Cybersecurity Solution, FindC, Mark Beers, VP Client Innovation, Mark Rove, and Harry Prasad Chade, Head Information Security Risk Management at NBF. Towards the end of the webinar, we will also have a Q&A session. So in case any questions comes to mind during the session, please share them through the Q&A tab, and we will address them at the end of the session as much as possible. Our first panelist is Mr. Yen. Good afternoon, Yen. Would you take a minute to introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, and thank you to NBF to hold this and Ali to moderate it. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Jens Land, and I am the Managing Director of IT-serve.com, and we're a multifaceted technology solutions company that range from advisory through to service support and implementation of solutions. One of our key areas is within cybersecurity, and our focus has been for the last 20 years and going forward in the SME market.
Thank you, Ian. So as a first question, what is the appropriate level of security an SME should have?
That is a really good question, and it's a very interesting question. It's very much individually. We are obviously focusing very much on the SME market, and what we tend to find is that there's a lot of uncertainty what cybersecurity is and what cybersecurity can do for you. So the appropriate level is you looking at your own company and understanding the level of threat if your information was available to someone else or could be used as a ransom to hold you hostage. So the real focus here is how much value do you put on your data more than what it is and what it isn't. So the level of security is directly related to the value you put onto your data.
Okay, in that case, how to start a cybersecurity journey?
The first part has to recognize that you want to do something about it. We tend to find multitude of different types of clients in not just in this market, it's at a global level, and many are so concerned and worried about cybersecurity that they put their head in the sand. And the best way to describe this is that if you don't talk about it and you don't have to do anything about it, if something happens, then you're not to blame. The problem with cybersecurity is all pervasive. It doesn't matter where you are. If you are not have a level of understanding of what it can do to you, that will become an issue. So the first step is to recognize that there is something out there that can threaten your data and therefore threaten your business. And the value you put on your data means that the value has to be insured against in order for you to be able to protect yourself. So the first part of a journey is to recognize that you have a challenge and then work from there.
As you said, that most people will put their head in the sand because they are worrying about the cost. So because they think that the cost is high. So how can I make it manageable?
Again, a great question. We work with a lot of our clients to try and avoid looking at what they need to do and then build from there in terms of what the cost is going to be. There's actually a number of things you can do as a business to mitigate the risk by openly understanding and having a dialogue with your employees. You see, the challenge is generally not yourself. The challenge is the people that work for you, which doesn't have the same, maybe possibly passion that you have. And if they do, they may be doing things too quickly. So a lot of it has to do with your own policies and procedures, talking about it and being able to make people aware of what needs to be done. I would say the majority of risks that you have currently can actually be mitigated or removed to a large extent by being able to understand, and your staff to understand, and your colleagues to understand what that problem is and how to avoid it. A simple one is being able to read an email and seeing something that says, open here, you won $1 million. Don't open it. If it's too good to be true, then don't do it. So this doesn't cost any money. That doesn't provide you don't have to buy anything, no boxes, no hardware. It's just a simple thing that to understand that there is a problem. So certain things actually cost nothing.
So do you say that if I do my policies and the procedures and awareness, I don't need to spend any more money?
I would say that's probably not 100% true, but what I can say to you is you can remove 80 to 90% of the cost of what it would have been. So there is a cost. There's an antivirus. There's certain things like a firewall in your office that you can't get around. Those are things that if you don't do them, then you will be more than vulnerable. You're guaranteed to be hacked. You're guaranteed to be vulnerable. But there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate this and to help people understand what needs to be done. But no, there is no way to avoid cybersecurity as a cost, even though it's a small cost. Same way, there's no way for you to run a business without IT.
Okay, so you said that if I don't have those solutions, I will be hacked. So if I got a breach, how can I detect it and what can I do after that?
Well, again, that's down to what it is and the value you put on your data. So first of all, you have to find a way to understand if you have been hacked. You have to understand if there's a problem within your network. And again, one way to mitigate this is to back up. It's a simple thing. A lot of people tend to forget it, but if you don't do it, things like ransomware, you may have heard about these, but ransomware recently in the US, there was one company that paid $11 million in Bitcoin just to get their data back again. So it's for you to understand what is there and then be able to work with that information. Being able to see what's there, you need someone to monitor it. And to be able to do something about it. Again, this is a talk that can be internal or external. What do you do if you're hacked? If you just ask those questions, you'll be able to find out what would you do in that situation before it becomes something you cannot handle.
So the expenses of being hacked is more than being secure.
It's far more, but again, it's down to what your data and the value of your data. If you look at NBF, the value of the data, it's not just the value of the actual data, it's the value of your reputation. I'll give you an example. If you look at Europe, they have something called GDPR that's mandated by the European Union. We don't know this, but we're actually covered by this. If we have data for European citizens that are currently in Europe, if you're not covered by this, you can face fines up to 20 million euros. That's 80 some million dirhams. So the key is, what is the value of the data from the data itself? maybe you're having to re-input or redo this data. You lose invoices, you lose purchase orders, you lose quotes, but also your reputational data. How does your customers think of you after you've been hacked? How does your suppliers trust you after you've been hacked in terms of giving you credit and other things? So there's a lot more than just the value of the time of entering the data. There's also your reputational data and other elements in there as well.
Okay, that's interesting. So I start by evaluating my data and my understanding of the data, and then understanding the risk of that, and that will lower the cost of the implementations as an overall for the journey of cybersecurity.
It will, for the simple reason that you become in a driver's seat. You know, we don't like to talk about just technology. What we like to talk about is you being able to take the driving seat to say, this is what I want. But everyone is so busy nowadays, specifically in the SME sector. So you're in a situation, you're doing your business, you're really good at doing your business, you're passionate about it, you're going to do fantastic. So you don't really want to worry about this backup and cybersecurity, and it sounds really expensive. But if you don't spend time on doing it, it's similar to spending time on your car. You can buy a new car. If you don't maintain it and you don't take care of it, that car is going to fail at one point. We just don't know if it's going to be tomorrow or next year.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a brief and nice, interesting thing. So let's move on to our second panelist, Mr. Hari Prasad Seth, Head of Information Security Risk Management at National Bank of Fujairah. Good afternoon, Hari. Hari, could you please switch on your mic?
Please. You're able to hear me, Ali?
Yes. Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So, Hari, would you take a minute, please, to introduce yourself to our panelists or to our audience?
Yes. It's wonderful to have to participate and share our experiences with all of you. I'm Hari Prasad Seth, with over 2 decades of experience in cybersecurity, spreading across telecom and banking sectors. And interesting is from past few years, we are part of the digitalization in the financial sector. That's how you see our SME platforms, and we are proudly say that one of the few banks in the whole world with passwordless for both retail and corporate bankings globally. And apart from that, we do our responsible citizens perspective, ensure that one security awareness spread across the nation. So we tie up along with the UBF, Banking Federation groups, and other law enforcement agencies to spread about the frauds. And we also do this awareness also starts from the schools. We do the awareness in the schools so that from the childhood onwards, the security culture is developed. This is it. And also I was the ISACA president for more than a few years in UAE. That's a brief discussion, Ali.
Thank you very much, Hari. So, Hari, with your experience now, what mistakes has been done in the past, and what can we learn from them for our future references?
Okay. So it's rather, I can say the mistakes, I put it as the learnings, to be frank. When it comes to the cybersecurity, as Jen has very clearly mentioned, that people start looking as technology. As soon as you start from technology front, you will be going in a different direction than compared to the what actually organization want. And this has come to a long way. Now I can say at NBF itself, where information security, we have 3 lines of defense is properly defined, and we have a clear differentiation and separation of duties maintained, and we will be talking about the business outcome rather than talking about the pure technology. Okay, and the second component is what kind of control if we start thinking about what kind of controls we need to implement. I think so that funds what we have is not good enough, not only us, any organization. So the thought process need to be changed from the control framework to resilience framework. Do I know what I'm protecting? If something happens to that, am I capable to detect and respond for that kind of stuff? So the resiliency is the key. That is what the key learning that we learned over the past, because definitely the adversaries are becoming very sophisticated, and we don't have that time and effort. And at the same time, we are getting into digitalization, and COVID has accelerated it up to maybe around 100 times. So the resiliency and culture, as Jen also mentioned, the culture plays a key role over here. And that is keep on stressing back on that. These are the key things, which learnings, which I can say, which we learned over the past few years.
That's interesting, Gary. So most of the people or most of the SMEs will consider themselves too small to be attacked. So why would I be subject to an attack if I'm a small SME?
All right. I will tell you in a different format. When you try to do any projects, what you try to execute first? Definitely a low-hanging fruits, right? Because you will try to see the outputs first, and then show the confidence to your project and your project members, all the stakeholders. Then you try to get into the project with appropriate budgets and try to go forward to execute what you want. Similarly, if an adversary thought process, how it goes is, they think that SMEs are low-hanging fruits. Please don't mind me that they're not. Why I'm saying that, there is a reason behind it. First is, there are all startups wanted to establish themselves in the business. The resources is always a constraint, definitely. Do they have a 3 lines of defense, a cybersecurity officer separately? The answer may not be yes. All right. And they are more vulnerable to social engineering. Why I'm saying is, it is a small organization, and many of these SMEs go with the trusting nature. And due to digitalization, some of these SMEs are trying to work remotely for the first time, maybe, or their employees might be working for the first time. Just imagine if I imitate as a CEO of that company and then try to send in mail to them, please execute this transaction, this order is very important for me. So it's a very high prone for the social engineering attacks in the SME range. And they also feel that one, if at all any attack happens, to communicate to the outside world that they're being hacked. Let's assume that one, if an IT services company get hacked, what is the probability for them to communicate to the outside world saying that we got hacked, or report it to the law enforcement? Okay. So what they try to do is very high probability, because of the stage where they are in the business, they try to pay the ransom. If you take the statistics globally also, this is the key behind these SMEs try to pay the ransom to get their data and business go on without taking much time. And one more component is definitely, many organizations depend, we are talking about digital environment where collaboration is the key. As an adversary, they think these are the channels to get into big organizations. Small legal firm is there, let's assume. If I take the legal advice from them, we share, or any of the big organizations share a lot of confidential data with them. Does the small legal firm have the appropriate DLP or data protection controls around it? So the adversary first start targeting that so that they can enter into bigger organizations. And the least, many of the times, they will be the part of the overall collateral damage. Right? In a game of war, there will be a lot of victims. May not be a direct victims. There will be the indirect victims. That is a part of game. That's how it happens. So these are the key things which I wanted to tell about why these adversaries concentrating on SMEs.
So what are the top three or the common attacks, the top three common attacks that an SME might face?
Okay, so Ali, actually there is hardly any change happen between the, I'll come from a fraud perspective, because at the end of the day, the impact is a fraudulent impact, whatever it is. It's hardly changed. But the volumes have increased because of the too much dependency on the digital channels. So I can say a couple of scams that are actually happening in the SME platform is definitely the number of scams with regards to the, we call it as the impersonation frauds. It has been increased significantly. So you get through the phone calls, fraudsters saying that when they are from an authorities or something and try to gain the personal details or the bank details. And the second one in the impersonation is imitating as a senior management or director of that SMEs and try to gain compromise. And many things that we observe being a bank is invoice fraud. If one in your chain of approval within your payment approval process within SMEs, if one user gets compromised, if the adversary gets access to the invoice, they simply change only the beneficiary details and send it. And the approver approves it without seeing the beneficiary details. They just see what are the contents and everything, but they don't look into the beneficiary details, and invoice frauds are increasing significantly. And once they transfer, they realize that one, oh my God, okay, now my fraud has happened. This is very critical. And the next one is with regards to the investment scams. The world is changing so fast. Suddenly the Bitcoin has raised so much, and suddenly there is a gold has reduced its cost. So keeping these kind of things in mind, it is an easy target for these adversaries to lure the SMEs with regards to investment. So they pose as a sales staff, offer the chance to invest money in everything from the shares, gold, land, and I heard that one in Europe, they also trying to sell the carbon credits. And they try to do a lot of research before getting into investment scams about your organization, your interests, and then exactly target you. And the next one, which we see is the purchase scams. And the trick to buy the products online, specifically vehicles, heavy machinery, office supplies. And they will show in such a way that one, they are very genuine. And people pay around 10% or 20% before the goods received, and the goods were never received. This is one of the very common attacks that we observed. Of course, last but not the least is our colleague Jen has told, ransomware. Ransomware has increased its presence in UAE, all right, which locks your computer and asks for a ransom so that you can access your data. So these are the various kinds of scams that we have observed from last 6 to 8 months in Middle East.
So Harry, with the increase of those attacks, if an SME suffered one of those, okay, what is the first action or the immediate action they need to take?
Good one, Ali. Actually, Jen has covered a bit with regards to this, telling about do you know your crown jewels type. If at all, first and foremost thing is how you know that your data is breached. It's very important. Is it is it somebody saying, or is it you faced it or you validated it? That is very important. Okay. And then first and foremost thing, anything like what happens if somebody gets heart attack, something like that, we contain it, right? We do first. Similarly, any data breach or any cyber attack happens, we need to contain that. Some of the examples to contain any data breach is disconnect from internet. I'm not asking to shut down your PC. Disconnect from internet. First and foremost component. And the second component you have to do is disconnect the impacted PCs or servers from your backups so that your backups are safe. Okay, this is the first and foremost principle people need to do it. Once you get that, second one, please change your credentials. There is 90. What we have seen in the last attacks is people use the same password across all the components what they're using. So change your credentials. I'm sure that one, as I told, that one resources is always a scarcity in SMEs. Have the contacts of your specialists. Maybe you can call a couple of peer organizations who are in the panelists, who are specialists in taking care of that. So have the contact with those specialists, because a lot of times we try to do investigation ourselves. Really, is it possible? If somebody have a heart attack, can we try to do by ourselves? We need to go call a specialist. And having a specialist, having a relationship with them is very important. And I don't think so they're charged hefty amount just to have that relationship. Okay. Next is, please understand the damage that is occurred. To understand the damage, you should know that from what is that you lost. The next component is, once you reach this position, if you are in UAE, please report to the respective legal. If you are in the banking industry, you need to report to central bank. If you are into the any other, if you are into telecom, you are to inform to the TRA. But what is the common email ID which you can send it, common portal that you can report if you are in UAE is, there is a website called ecrime.ae. Independent of what kind of background or what kind of business you are in, you can report your loss over there. If it is a breach is regard to the financial transaction, please contact your relationship manager of the bank and try to tell them in advance. And guys, please always remember, when you observe any of this breach, please report within 48 hours to 72 hours. If you are able to report much in advance, that is better, but it takes 48 hours to understand yourself what you lost. Because when you report it, you should know at least something that whether it is you are impacted or not. That is why many regulations tell about 72 hours as the reporting time, but keep that in mind, because as the time passes, your impact will keep on increasing. And of course, not the least, take the help of the peers and fix the problem. These are the various steps you need to do it. Nothing required to be advanced technology savvy. Okay, and please don't pay the ransom without contacting the right specialist, please, because we don't know what is the impact in your organization. Ali, that's the takeaway, key things from my side with respect to instant response.
So I know that it's a very interesting topic to speak about, that what to do, and you have summarized it very clearly, that I need to disconnect. Before that, I need to know who's in the market from cybersecurity that can protect me in case of an attack, know the local authorities whom to refer to in case that something happened to me. So But that after the incident or when the incident happened. But before that, what's an affordable steps an SME can take in a short sentence, I would say, to advise them?
Okay, there is no silver bullet. First and foremost thing, please. Okay, as I totally echo the words of Jen, first and foremost things, identify your key data and back up your data. Okay, and then please implement basic controls to prevent a malware, whether it is on your laptops, whether it is your mobile device or anything. Okay, please don't think that when I am using an Android or I'm using a iOS device, I don't need an antivirus. Assumption is wrong. Okay, the third component which you have to do is, please, if you are using smartphones, please use your smartphone safely and securely. Fourth component which I say is always use strong passwords. Rather, I say that one, enable multi-factor authentication or a token for all your access. If I'm an SME, if I'm using, let's say, Gmail, or if I'm using Facebook for my for our marketing and communications, many of these service providers give second factor authentication without any charge. We may feel it is a discomfort, but it adds a lot of value. Please enable it, and then and there. I can ask everybody, please check it out as a personal Gmail accounts or Microsoft. Have you enabled multi-factor authentication for your own? And the last and not the least, spread awareness among your peers within the SMEs with regards to basic things like phishing. It can come through your email, it come through your social networking channels like a Facebook, WhatsApp, and anything. Guys, when I'm talking about these brands, I'm not have any relationship with these brands. I'm just telling an example for them. If you take these 5 steps, you are secured more than 80%.
So that's a simple 5 steps to be taken and secure the SME within their business. Thank you very much, Harry. Let's move on to our third panelist, Mr. Adish Bilai, Practice Lead, Cybersecurity Solution as FindC. Good afternoon, Mr. Adish. Yeah, can you take a minute, please, to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes. Thank you for this opportunity for us to speak in this particular forum. First of all, I'd like to introduce my organization, Finis. Finis is a leading digital transformation organization and a provider of innovative business technology solutions. And we are spread across various sectors and to be, like, say, government, banking, financial organization, telecom, and media. And we predominantly work in the MENA region. And we bring together advanced technologies and robust infrastructure. And we have a large pool of talent who actually work on a global delivery model to help various organizations to get most cost-effective IT solutions and have a seamless integration in various departments which they work. And Finis is also a red herring global 100 solution system integrator company. And we actually predominantly focus on information, cybersecurity, AI, business intelligence and analytics, RPA, customer experience management, treasury, and infrastructure and IT managed solution. I, as a practice lead in Finis, my key role is to manage the digital transformation journey for organization from the cybersecurity perspective, where I help them to attain that particular goal by helping being a trusted advisor or a consultant to enhance their value from the products or services which they're already utilizing, and how we can actually help them to find out gaps or any cybersecurity concerns which they have in their organizational cybersecurity structure. So that's a kind of like a short introduction to what we do.
Thank you, Adish. Adish, you mentioned that the transformation, the digital transformation, and most of the SMEs, even the banks and other organizations, are considering cloud as part of this journey. But the question is cloud safe for SME?
To answer this question, why companies need a cloud environment and what do they have to think before getting into cloud is something which I wanted to address first. First and foremost, if you are actually looking at today's scenario, today it's often more cost effective to host an application in the cloud instead of a data center. And in fact, there has been studies like organizations like IDG and other leading technology media companies where more than 73% of the companies now have applications or infrastructure which is actually in the cloud. These cloud environments operated by cloud service providers and various SaaS vendors, be it AWS, Amazon, Microsoft, or any others which you choose to, even IBM, are not part of an organizational's network. Like it's not your network. So the same type of network controls do not apply to them. They have their own checks and balance and controls. So you don't have much of a say or control in it. So in these scenarios, you have to look at this whole structure in more of a environment of a zero trust, wherein you don't trust them blindly. And as a result, most companies have to have applications and data as they spread across multiple locations are losing insight into what's happening in their cloud. So I would advise, or I would say, most SMEs should look into it from a zero trust perspective.
So who's my zero trust stakeholders?
Ideally, to be specific, like any other IT organization, to be specific, zero trust will touch upon multiple points in your organization. It will have a people element where various stakeholders come in picture, and the push or impetus for zero trust is often a new cross architectural sort of a project or a company wide effort, to be specific, I would say, wherein you have to enhance or enable the businesses, you need to have security or add a new technology. You have to work with people, data, applications, and infrastructure who actually effectively work and who need equal representation to get this particular installation or this particular sort of movement to be done in the organization.
That's good. So how can I implement a zero trust for the cloud?
I would say there are various formalities, or let's say the exercise which you have to take it up. There is a continuous step-by-step process or for applying, let's say, into an environment of cloud from a zero trust perspective. To use the cloud to make use the cloud of cloud delivery security model and implementing, you have to provide with a secure, consistent, and seamless environment for the organization, wherein you actually reduce, you have to also look into reducing the surface of attack, which is something which always have to be looked into from zero trust perspective, and provide the users a consistent, seamless experience and physically locate where exactly your data is and how they want to connect and which application they want to use. Otherwise, if a user experience is too complicated or requires too much of change, whenever they work, there will always be resistance in the organization. You will always feel the employees are not accepting this, or there are different applications which don't talk to each other. They will not accept it. So it's always important that these things are taken as more of like a tips before applying a zero trust into your cloud environment. But one more thing I want to add on to that is the benefit of looking into a zero trust sort of environment for SMEs. So when you actually talk about SMEs, the first thing which comes up is that why SMEs must prioritize the move to a zero trust security model. Let's imagine for a moment that we weren't in the midst of this global pandemic as what we all are. Organizations were already investing in zero trust infrastructure, but it was slightly on a long-term perspective. Now, because of the current increase in sophistication of attacks which is happening, which Hari spoke about and also Jen spoke about, there is a attack surface which is actually increasing to multitude of extent. So in this sort of scenario, when an organization which is an SME, they cannot hope up to this sort of a changing work environments wherein you are having employees who are remote or employees who are actually working from various locations and on a hybrid model. So more and more businesses make use of cloud technologies and the perimeters of network security have expanded. And an SME environment, it's very difficult to get a track of all of this and to make the vulnerabilities and to contain all the breaches, and combine this with an extended period of remote working, which looks through, let's say, have a permanent impact on the way we work. And it is clear that we need new security solutions. So to start with, I think so it is time that most businesses who have either experienced a breach and or unfortunately some who will experience these breaches in the near future will happen. So it's time that people are looking into a zero trust model, especially in the SME sector.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that people need to look at applying zero trust model either on cloud or on infrastructure. And thank you for that tip. They are very practical to implement, and especially when it comes to preserving the user experience when using the application. So I will move forward with our fourth panelist, our last panelist, Mr. Mark Pierce, a VP Client Innovation at Mark. Good afternoon, Mark.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Can you, Mark, please take a minute to introduce yourself to our panelists before shooting the questions?
Yeah, by all means. Well, yes, my name is Mark Pierce. I'm the Vice President of Client Innovations for Malgrove. Malgrove is a long-established and trusted cybersecurity services and solutions provider based in Dubai. And we combine some of the best technologies with some of the best people out there to bring security to our customers. And we deal with people at government level, enterprise, and the SME sector.
So Mark, I think you received that question before that. I got an antivirus, I got a few security tools. What else do I need to protect myself?
Well, we've touched on this in some of the earlier comments.
Yes.
What we advise people is to make sure that you've got your antivirus, you've got your firewalls, is that you keep those up to date, and you also combine this with strong, secure passwords. One of the earlier speakers talked about multi-factor authentication. This is critical moving forward as well. So, whilst as an SME, you may not have the biggest budget, there are certain things that you can do, like the firewalls, like the antivirus, like the strong passwords, that raises your security level. One of the other things that I always recommend to just about every company that I speak to is to look at your domain. Your domain name is one of the first things that is purchased by a company, probably the first thing. We all sort of set up our email, and that's one of the very first things that we do. But one of the last things that companies do is actually look at securing their domain name. So people look at they should be looking at their certification and making sure that they've got the various certificates in place to protect their domain name, because that is often an access point to a company. So there's all those things, there's all those combinations of things, and above all, make sure that you patch and keep up to date.
Okay, so those are, for some SMEs, those activities are jargons for them. They don't understand security. They want to focus on their businesses. So what are the points that they need to consider before outsourcing security to an MSP?
If I understood that question correctly, what they need to start sort of thinking about before they start outsourcing is just making sure they've got that good housekeeping in place, that they've got those basics and those fundamentals in place, and they look at training their staff and raising the security IQ of their staff as well. So before you start to think about going out to a managed security services provider, which can be expensive, as we've touched on, because you're buying quite an expensive service, you need to make sure that you've got the fundamentals in place for your own company, and then kind of like grow into it. You will know the point at which you think, actually, I've got significant amounts of data, or I've got significant amounts of clients now. Now is the time that I need to start thinking about a security strategy. And we touched on regulation right at the beginning with things like GDPR. I was actually, when I was back in the UK, I was actually part of the focus group for the UK government that helped sort of shape the cybersecurity policy of the UK. And we started to look at what legislation was actually going to sort of drive people towards better security and how that would actually help them rather than hinder as well. So there's a number of things in that area that you need to consider as well before you get to the stage of bringing in a third party.
You mentioned to raise the security IQ of the team. What are the smallest or the simple tips for them to do that?
Well, there's the internet is not only a great source of malware and all these bad things, but it's also a great source of very, very good things. There's lots of information on the internet and training courses that companies can take and sort of get their employees to participate in. So there's lots of training and awareness programs that I would always recommend. And we do this right across the board, from our government clients through to our smaller SMEs and SMBs as well. And some of the training courses that are out there are really quite fun to do. There's a great message underneath them, and it raises not only the awareness, but it raises that sort of the IQ of somebody to start to recognize some of the things that could trip you up in the future. Don't click on anything. Make sure that it's a trusted source. Start to read things a little more carefully as well. People touched on the impersonations that were going on, and you have these phishing and vishing and smishing attacks. All these kind of different attack vectors that will be aimed at a company that people need to be aware of, and those training courses will help raise that awareness of those kind of activities and those kind of strategies and tactics of the attackers to people's employees.
So with those training courses, raising the IQs of employees, that will help them definitely when they are working remotely. Is there any particular or different advices that you would like to share?
About working remotely?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, as we've seen over the last sort of 18 months or so in these pandemic times, that we were being pushed to the perimeter of our organizations. We're seeing sort of people work from home and in remote locations, and as a company, we're no different. So we have lots of things that are put in place to prevent mishaps and mistakes. So we would encourage people that if they are working from home or they're working remotely, that the use of VPN is great. We're looking at what other things your devices are allowed to connect to as well. We all have perhaps a printer or a smart TV or a mobile phone at home, and there's all these internet and IP enabled devices that will connect. What are they doing? What are they doing, and how are they talking to the internet? And do you want to be linking your computer in an unsafe way to your home network if you're dealing with sensitive commercial information? So we advise people on how they can deploy secure web gateways. So it tells you what you can access and what you can't access, what's whitelisted and what is prohibited. So there's all these tactics and techniques that you can put in place to stop kind of like the mishaps, the mistaken sort of clicks onto something that they shouldn't be clicking onto and ended up in part of the internet that they shouldn't be ending up into.
Well, I think that you summarized it, that continue working remotely. What are the steps that's to be secure as an SME? So thank you very much, Mark.
My pleasure.
Let's move on. with the Q&As and answer some of the questions from our audiences. I can see that there are multiple interesting questions has been posted. I would like to request all the panelists to keep their mic on for the Q&A. Before going to the Q&A, you will see a poll appearing. I will request everyone from the audience to complete it, which will help us with our future webinars. So taking the first question, the question says, imagine if I am an SME having taken all measures, but how do I make sure that my business partners I integrate have a quality security so that I don't get compromised through them? Len, would you please answer this question?
So that again, there isn't an easy answer. I think it's about knowledge, being able to ask the right questions. You don't have to know all of it, but you have to be able to ask the right questions. There are tools and elements out there, such as something called DMARC and other ways for you to secure yourself, but asking the right questions is the best way.
Okay, I think the next question is for Adish. Adish, they are saying that what good IT security software for a startup where cost is important?
I think so. I missed out the question. Could you just repeat yourself?
Okay, so the question is, for a startup company, what's some good IT security software that they can use and still bearing the cost of those solutions?
I do believe currently there are multitudes of solutions which are available in the market in terms of cybersecurity. So before embarking on this journey, it's always best to have an advisory role from somebody who comes on a vendor neutral sort of environment, who can suggest them based on their environment which solutions fits best for them, because each SME is a different environment altogether. So there is no right or wrong or a clear-cut answer for this. It's completely depends on an organization and the structure they have and the type of interaction they have. So, but basically you have to take care of four things: people, data, application, infrastructure. That's always something which I repeat. So people-related threats, solution for that; data-related threats, solution for specific to that. And there are various solutions available, multitudes of them. We can keep on talking for hours on that. An application, if they're using, they have a DMZ, they are a public domain, so they have to have controls and solutions for that. And infrastructure, whatever they have, how do they, as Hari mentioned, the crown jewels, how do we safeguard them? It's very important. So each organization has to look at this as a yardstick and take their decisions accordingly.
I will take the next question to Mark. Mark, they are asking that on infrastructure, what is required for zero trust?
Sorry, is that to me?
Yes.
Yes. Well, it depends. Again, it depends on the infrastructure that you have there. We deploy different kind of sort of appliances onto some of the bigger companies that sit sort of quite nicely in between us and the infrastructure that sort of filters out a lot of the bad traffic. So there are certain other sort of devices that can help and software that can help, and it's a question of actually identifying, again, working with one of your sort of expert teams or one of your specialists to advise on what's going to be best for you, because some of the applications that we use are particularly for an SME would be way out of the budget. So yeah, developing that zero trust has probably got to come a little bit earlier in terms of your people. You've got to get the zero trust emanating from your people rather than the infrastructure necessarily.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So last question, how can we secure the email ID for all in our company? Hari?
Okay, so how can I get the email ID?
Yes.
Okay, so from the person, there are two types of things which I'm looking into it here. One is if you're looking to protect the email IDs of an individual users of the SME, first and foremost thing is enable multi-factor authentication. Again, how you are accessing the email independent of the device that you are using, where you enable the access from internally, remotely, mobile device and all. That is first thing. That gives a hard target for any of the attackers to get into your email system. The second thing, if an organization feels that the data that you are using in the email has to be within the boundaries of your organization or only to the certain third parties, then you need to get back into advanced solutions of that. All right. So small example I can say is, you want access of this email on your mobile devices, what your vendor is asking or what your staff is asking, but you don't want this email data need to be copied into their personal devices. So based on the requirement, we can go with the multiple solution from the end user perspective. All right. Coming to the origination as an organization, when an email comes to the organization, before it reaches the end user, what kind of protections you should be having? So there are multiple solutions available in the market which can reduce your email to, which can reduce the number of spam, malicious code, or all those things. They have the solutions. If you're using the cloud solutions, ask those cloud solution providers what capabilities they have to prevent this kind of common issues that are happening. This is from the second perspective with regards to the organization email. And the third perspective, I think one of my colleagues has mentioned with regards to the domain. All right, let's assume that if I'm using something called nbf.ae, what stops an adversary using the same domain and communicate to your customers? Control your domain and DNS records very well. Of course, to talk about each of this, as Adesh telling that one, it takes time, but look into these three different angles, you will be protected from this kind of email protection. I hope it answers your query, Ali.
You have answered. So Harry, Yen, Mark, and Adish, thank you very much for joining us today. Dear audience, thank you very much for attending our webinar today. Hope you find it fruitful and helpful so you can strategize your journey to cybersecurity and to protect your business and clients. And as the panelist says, know your information, know what you are going to protect, and it should be supposed to be an easy journey to cybersecurity protection. This webinar will be posted in NBF YouTube channel, where you can find other webinars on other topics for SME. Once again, thank you very much and wish you a pleasant day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.